Have you heard of the Endangered Species Act? It's one of the most important environmental laws ever passed in the United States. Throughout its more than 50 years in existence, the ESA has protected iconic species such as bald eagles and manatees, ensuring their survival so we still have them with us today. The Trump administration has proposed a change to the Endangered Species Act that would completely undermine its purpose. The change would exclude habitat destruction from what it means to harm a species. Under this new, much smaller definition, only direct killing of individual animals would count as harm. This rule change would be devastating for endangered species. To put it simply, animals need places to live. If you take those places away, they will not survive. As stated by the Center for Biological Diversity, this change would allow industries to mine, log, bulldoze, pollute, and otherwise destroy their habitats. The group went on to state, you simply can't protect species without protecting the places they live, and Trump's radical plan might be the end of the Florida panther or the spotted owl. It's incredibly sad and disturbing to see this administration pressing fast forward on the extinction crisis. The Endangered Species Act was signed into law in 1973 with bipartisan support during the administration of Republican President Richard Nixon. Throughout the 20th century, Americans had become increasingly concerned about the precipitous decline of some of the country's most iconic species, including bald eagles and bison. Wildlife populations were collapsing under the pressures of habitat loss, overly intensive hunting, and poisoning from toxic chemicals like DDT. One of the big wake-up calls for people was that by the 1960s, there were only a few hundred nesting pairs of bald eagles, our national bird within the lower 48 states. Fortunately, back then, there were some actual responsible adults in the U.S. government. They recognized that the extinction of such species would represent a devastating loss for all Americans and established the Endangered Species Act as a framework through which animals and plants could be protected. According to the World Wildlife Foundation, it's one of the most effective laws in the world for preventing and reversing the decline of endangered and threatened species. And as the Audubon Society notes, it prohibits harm to listed species, designates critical habitat essential to their conservation, and requires a recovery plan with specific management activities for each species to restore it to a healthy population. It's helped some species, such as certain populations of humpback whales, to recover enough to be removed from the list. If it weren't for this legislation, these animals might not be with us today. In current times, we need the Endangered Species Act more than ever. We are, quite frankly, living in an era of unprecedented catastrophe for wildlife. Human development has spread so widely that, as the New York Times puts it, animals are literally running out of places to live. Habitat loss, both on land and in the ocean, is one of the biggest drivers of species decline. And make no mistake, if the Endangered Species Act can no longer protect habitats, these species will die. The Endangered Species Act currently protects many animals you probably know and love. Polar bears, northern spotted owls, black-footed ferrets, the Gunnison sage grouse, whooping cranes, California condors, and desert tortoises. It also protects endangered and threatened marine animals, which currently includes manatees, western stellar sea lions, blue whales, right whales, sperm whales, and several species of sea turtle. Oh, and do you like monarch butterflies? They might be added to the list soon because habitat loss across their range in North America has been devastating to their population. If we lose meaningful protection from the Endangered Species Act, monarch butterflies stand a good chance of going extinct. Corporations don't need to expand resource extraction into the few remaining scraps of habitat for these species. Their profits have been just fine over the last several decades while we've had strong Endangered Species Act protection. But to Trump and his cronies, destroying some of the last remaining bits of nature to squeeze out every measly, bloody dollar is worth it. The thing I want people to understand is this would represent a theft. Killing these species and destroying their habitats would be a theft against all of us and future generations. Pretty much everyone I know loves these animals. Every person I know who's personally gotten to see a wild sea turtle or an owl or a tortoise, their faces light up with excitement when they describe the experience. During my trip to South Dakota a few years ago, I was lucky enough to glimpse a black-footed ferret as it ran across the prairie. I stopped and watched it until it disappeared into the grass, stunned by its beauty and grace. When I later learned they're endangered, I realized how truly fortunate I was to see one. I might never get the chance again if they die out, nor would anyone else. The thought of this made my heart hurt. I haven't seen a northern spotted owl or a sea turtle yet, but I really hope to someday. Maybe you do too. Or maybe you just enjoy watching videos of these various animals, or looking at pictures pictures and paintings of them because it brings us joy to know that such wonderful creatures exist. All of us benefit from the biodiversity that makes our planet a beautiful and fascinating place to live. The world will be a much sadder and less interesting place if these species die out. Some things are worth more than money, and it is a travesty that Trump is willing to destroy this natural heritage that belongs to all of us. He'll privatize the profits and socialize the loss, and our world will never be the same. There is currently a public comment period for this change to the Endangered Species Act. Comments must be submitted by May 19, 2025. Many of those who are tracking this issue have shared that while this wannabe totalitarian government will likely ignore the comments, it's still important to submit because when environmental groups file lawsuits, it will help build the case that public input was not considered. As such, it's important for everyone who cares about endangered species to add a comment to the public record. Will and Jim Pattis of More Than Just Parks, who are, by the way, doing an outstanding job tracking all of the attacks on public land currently underway, have drafted text you can use as a basis for your public comment. You can find this on their Substack. I've seen people saying online that it can help to personalize your comment somewhat, so you can start with their draft text and adjust it based on your own interests and expertise. The important thing is to make sure you do submit your comment by the deadline. Besides the Endangered Species Act, if you're up for some additional action items, here are at least a few that have arisen recently. Mining is now planned in the Mojave National Preserve, which is home to species like Joshua trees and endangered desert tortoises. The National Parks Conservation Association has an action alert you can customize to oppose that. Meanwhile, in the north, the Boundary Waters, a pristine wilderness of lakes and forests, is threatened by proposed copper mining. Check out the Save the Boundary Waters website for their customizable message to send. If you're able to, calling your representatives is an even more effective way to speak out. I honestly don't really know what else to say except for a little bit of a rant. This is a dark time for public land and environmental policy in the United States. It is disgusting and shameful that today's government is doing its best to destroy the legacy of environmental protections that had been established through bipartisan action in the previous century. This legislation had been motivated by clear necessity, such as when bald eagles and other birds almost went extinct due to the use of DDT. Rivers literally caught on fire because they were so polluted. Or when mothers living in Love Canal, a neighborhood where a company had dumped toxic waste, experienced high rates of miscarriages, and many children who were born had severe birth defects. For decades, we had the Environmental Protection Agency to, well, protect us to stop such things from happening again. Now that the EPA has been basically gutted, we can look forward to breathing polluted air, drinking polluted water, and skyrocketing cancer rates. To add insult to injury, this administration is doing its best to kill off our remaining wildlife, privatize public lands, and destroy what little remains of the American wilderness. All of this is happening for absolutely no reason, other than that a small subset of political elites are filled with greed, along with disrespect and contempt for nature and the American people. Anyone who cares about human well-being, nature, and our environment must speak out now to oppose what is happening. We have a duty to do our best to stop it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.